Smackdown from October the 27th, 2023. We got to talk about it. Not much happened, but we still got to talk about it. Got news and notes. We're going to talk about Booker T claiming that the main event Mafia was a better stable than the Bloodline. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. I'm pretty sure we got something else we're going to talk about too, but I honestly do not have it set up. So I guess we'll figure it out as we go along. But let's go. SmackDown had two really great segments. One match that was pretty good, and the rest of it was kind of some comedy, but they were basically just filling out the card for Crown Jewel, which is, I didn't know it was Saturday, next Saturday. I thought it was this Saturday. Like literally the day you're listening to this. Because next week is YumaCon, where I get to actually go be a nerd. So I'm actually thinking of maybe doing Crown Jewel. I don't know what day it would be. But I'll probably end up doing it, watching it, then going out and going to YumaCon. We'll see. We'll see how that turns out. But let's talk about this. Main event Mafia is better than the Bloodline. This is the Booker T. Very, very bold claim from Booker T. On his podcast, he says, Main Event Mafia was a better faction by far. But I think the Bloodline has had one of the best runs any faction could ever have. Probably the best. But I just say better faction because we had some major players. And we weren't a family. We was a faction. Well, you certainly were that. You certainly were a faction. He says that he felt like they never got the chance to really explore how good Main Event Mafia really could have been in the right situation. Okay. I just think this is kind of ludicrous. Look, OG TNA, TNA 1.0, whatever you want to call it. Main Event Mafia was a big story at the time. And it was loaded with talent. You had Booker T, Scott Steiner, Sting, I believe. Kevin Nash was in it. There was quite a few guys that was in the Main Event Mafia. And if I remember correctly, it ended up being mostly about Kurt Angle, which is fine. You know, I didn't really have an issue with that. And Scott Steiner was always hilarious and entertaining. But I don't remember any Main Event Mafia feuds that made me all that interested. It came across like the Main Event Mafia, like the individual members were basically clowning, especially Booker T. He's basically clowning to the rest of the thing. It wasn't like serious, dramatic, must-see storytelling. So, while I will not say, oh, the Bloodline's better than the Main Event Mafia, I'll just say, for me, it's not. I don't remember anything happening within the body of the Main Event Mafia that I felt like was that important, or that really furthered the business forward, or really saved TNA. Like, it's a great storyline for TNA, but I think if you compare it to even like Aces and Eights, it's not even as important as Aces and Eights, because Aces and Eights, at the very least, moved business somewhat forward for TNA. But I can't say the same thing for the Main Event Mafia. Also, I guess one more thing. Ronda Rousey actually wrestled again, despite the fact she said she was retired. She showed up at this place called Lucha Vavoom, which is sort of a burlesque wrestling hybrid. They have like a residency in Las Vegas where they do shows. Taya has done these shows before. They actually look very interesting. You know, I know that wrestling and a lot of things don't mix, but burlesque, maybe. But Ronda Rousey apparently wrestled tag team with Marina Shafir at this thing. And I guess it doesn't mean that she's not retired. It just means that she's as retired as every other wrestler is, where she's retired until she's not. You know, she doesn't need to work, but she will. Or she'll work with her friends only or something like that. So it was actually very cool. Of course, I don't know if there's any way to watch it. I don't need to see it. I can tell you that much. I'm not exactly in a rush to watch another Ronda Rousey match. I can tell you that much. Now, let's get into the show. But I want to have a conversation about what something Bully Ray said on Busted Open Radio about LA Knight. I'm going to go through the opening of Smackdown, then we're going to get into what Bully Ray said about LA Knight, because I think it's very interesting. And I think I want to compare this to John Cena. And I think it's very, very important to do that, especially in terms of characters and stories and writing, etc. So Roman Reigns is about to do his exceptionally long entrance when he's cut off by LA Knight. LA Knight then also sits at the head of the table for the contract signing. And then he starts going off about how Roman Reigns is just going to hand him the title. And Roman says that he's never even had, he being LA Knight, has never even had a title match before. So he's going to go easy on him. And then he used a lot of homoerotic language about how he's just going to go easy on him. You know, called him sweetheart. And then LA Knight says, yeah, go ahead, underestimate me. If you underestimate me, you're already beat. Then he says that he only had 1 year in and that he's already at the head of the table. And this is his first chance, but he only needs one time. He can't stop this train. He can't stop the undeniable Kavorka. And basically he says that he is going to be the WWE champion. Roman Reigns got tired of hearing that, attacked him. LA Knight started to fire back, but Jimmy Uso saved Roman Reigns, started fighting LA Knight, ended up getting slammed through the table. Of course, Chekhov's gun. You had a table in the ring, somebody had to go through it. So, while they're backstage, Heyman has a Green Bay Packers championship belt, to which he says this is the closest thing that LA Knight and the Green Bay Packers will get to being champions. Then Jimmy Uso flopped down on the couch and said, and Roman asked him, like, what happened tonight? Like, what's going on? What happened? And he says, he ran the play. I ran the play, Us. Roman said, well, you ran the wrong play. He's like, I called an audible, a hot route. I was like, oh my God. We're going full with the sports analogy, the football analogies, right? After Roman says that Jimmy has to handle LA Knight tonight, Jimmy says he's on the injured reserve list. He can't do nothing. Roman's like, what you say? And he was like, I'm not on the injured reserve list. I can do something. So he jumps up and basically he's going to have a match with LA Knight tonight. So LA Knight cuts a promo backstage, says he's tired of hearing about who has pissed off the bloodline. It's time to talk about who the bloodline has pissed off. Then he says he's going to grab Jimmy Uso by his ponytails and ride him around the arena so he can scream out whose game this is. I was like, I don't know about that. I don't like that. I don't like that imagery. LA Knight defeated Jimmy Uso in the main event. It was all right, I guess. It wasn't like great, but it wasn't terrible either. After the match, Roman Reigns jumped LA Knight. He ended up missing an attack, hitting the turnbuckle and catching a BFT for his troubles. So Roman is down and LA Knight is up at the end of the show. He's looking down on Roman, promising him that he's going to win the title and all this kind of stuff. This was a very strong night for LA Knight. He did it very good. Jimmy Uso continues to be a bumbling idiot who is obsessed with football for some reason. Touchdown bloodline. I don't know what's going on with that guy. Roman is there basically to get people to care about LA Knight and to care about what's going on this show. As you could tell, if you've been watching and paying attention, Roman hasn't done much. He's just kind of sat there or stood there and let LA Knight take over. LA Knight's done like 90% of the talking. He wins most of the fights. And they're really trying to do what they can to get him over, which is not wrong. But since he's not going to win, it also is a way of trying to get him some kind of credibility by having him frustrate Roman by the way he talks to him. But it also kind of feels non-canon in a way. Like it almost feels like this isn't relevant to the Bloodline story at all. Like it's not really moving it forward. It's just kind of like a placeholder, you know? Like it don't feel like Roman's under any pressure here, you know, or Jimmy or Solo or anybody really in this, in relation to LA Knight, I should say. It doesn't feel like it's urgent. It just feels like, yeah, this guy's the hot hand right now, so we're going to go with him. But it doesn't feel like this is an absolute big opportunity for LA Knight. I don't think they've done enough to get people to believe that LA Knight could win. And I think we've gotten so deep into the Roman Reigns storyline and the Roman Reigns title run that nobody believes LA Knight can win. And it wouldn't make sense for him to win. Like, he is basically a placeholder for this match, because Roman has to be on Crown Jewel, and that's pretty much it. So I go from there because LA Knight, when you look at the character and you see what's going on, how over he is, it's hard to say that something is missing, but there is a second gear. Okay, that exists, and Bully Ray talked about this on Busted Open Radio, where he said, this is from Wrestling Inc. He said, "Where's the depth to LA Knight other than the Timberlands, the jeans, the cool vest, the cool glasses, the great look, handsome man? That's all great. That's all the tip of the iceberg. If you really want people to be invested in LA Knight, we need to know what lies beneath. I know what lies beneath Cody Rhodes. It's the Rhodes name. It's finishing the story, not only for himself, but his family." He continues by saying that Cody Rhodes makes the fans feel like they are part of his family. So that's a really interesting element, because we're talking about something about emotional content, emotional investment. That's something that, if there is anything missing in LA Knight, it is that. It is, he's positioned himself as being generally very cool, but not really sympathetic. You don't really feel bad for LA Knight. He has a story, and they talked about the story with his feud with The Miz, and how long it took for him to get to WWE, how old he is, that kind of stuff. It creates a vulnerability in the character. It creates an opportunity for the audience to look at this guy and say, man, this is a kind of a blue collar work guy who busted his ass to get where he is. You can sympathize with that. You can imagine somebody being a really good singer, but they don't get a record deal until they're 38 years old. Well, most singers on the radio or whatever are 28, 26. Some of them are teenagers. How many people are really in their mid 30s just now becoming Grammy level singers, or finally going on world tour and selling out the tours, and you're almost 40 at the age where most people are winding down or becoming obscure because they've been famous for so long? So it's an interesting story for you to tell, and I think they tried to tell that story, but maybe the character is not meant to be vulnerable. Maybe the character is just meant to be cool. And this is where you kind of get with The Rock, where The Rock never had those sympathies either. The Rock was just effortlessly cool, while Steve Austin had that built-in sympathy with the neck injury, and with the boss is always trying to keep him down kind of element to the character always. The Rock was just coasting on being cool. Whenever, something was bothering The Rock, he could laugh it off, or he could turn it into a joke, or whatever the case may be. And you never really got anything beneath the Superman element of The Rock. You never saw vulnerability out of The Rock. Even if The Rock was embarrassed, even if The Rock fell down, slipped and fell, he always came across as if he was bulletproof. Nothing really could shake The Rock. Meanwhile, other characters who really got over played that range of emotions. Shawn Michaels was number one when it comes to that emotional content. Mid-90s Shawn Michaels was so manipulative, because you had, on the surface, you had the chaps, the glitz, the glamour, the sexy boy dance, the girls going crazy. But underneath, you would have, he lost his smile. He got jumped by some guys in Syracuse, New York, or he has a knee injury, or he broke his back, or whatever the case may be. And he was a master at being cool, but also having that vulnerability and playing with people's heartstrings. And that was something that a lot of people, when they started to gravitate towards Shawn, it was because of stuff like that. Because they did that really good story with him and Diesel, where you got to see the jealousy of Shawn Michaels that Diesel finally became world champion before him. And then how they made up, became best friends again. Then saw the jealousy come from Diesel's end when Shawn was the champion, and then Diesel. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's always that next level. And John Cena was perfect on this show to show you exactly what I'm talking about. In having a Superman character who could either be, and at the same time showing range, vulnerability. Now, LA Knight's not been around that long. And while this, I think, is a legitimate criticism, he hasn't been around a long time. You know, most of these guys, when we're talking about them, with the exception of The Rock, like Shawn Michaels was around for a long time before you really started feeling sympathy for him. You know, Undertaker was around for a long time before they started building sympathy into his character. This is why the Kane storyline works so much. And the Mankind one too. This is why Undertaker as a character had hit a point where he was very, very cool and everybody liked him, but they didn't know what to do with Undertaker. So it was like, let's kill him. He's buried alive and that's it. And it didn't really work. It didn't resonate. It was okay, but it didn't really resonate. Then it was, let's have his longtime manager turn on him. There it is. The person who knows the secrets of The Undertaker can now use those secrets against him. And then they took it to the next level by, now he's got a brother. Now we see that he's got a family. And we see another element of the character. We see that honorable Undertaker who won't fight his own little brother and that kind of stuff. And that stuff creates more success. But it takes some time, I guess, in order to get there. We can't expect LA Knight to go there immediately. But I do eventually want to get to that point where we talk more about, I would say, his age. I would say his journey, where he's been, what he's been doing. So far, they have used his journey mostly as a gotcha. I was winning world championships while you were doing blah, 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 or whatever the case may be. Instead of literally letting LA Knight or introducing something that triggers in him how hard it was for him to get where he is. And that, I think the rapper Talib Kweli, he said once that it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. It takes 10 years of hard work and effort to be an overnight success. And LA Knight is right now, what you're looking at is 15 years of effort. The independence, NWA, TNA, all that kind of stuff. Years and years and years of effort. This is why he can rise up the rankings so fast. This guy's not a rookie. He's old. He's been doing this stuff forever. He knows how to connect with people. He knows how to get the sing-along stuff happening. But it's the sympathy. It's getting people emotionally invested in that character. Right now, they just think LA Knight's cool. They want to yell, yeah, and all that kind of stuff. But is anybody going to be legitimately heartbroken if he doesn't win? No. Nobody's going to cry if LA Knight didn't win. Nobody's going to, throw a fit if LA Knight doesn't win. Contrast that to Sami Zayn. Contrast that to Cody. Where these guys, Sami Zayn wasn't really I wouldn't say he was cool. But Cody had a cool element. The crowd really, really liked him. They enjoyed Cody's character. And they were legitimately upset that Cody didn't win. So you want to have that response. You want people to be really upset that LA Knight didn't win. But if he doesn't have people emotionally invested in his character, then him losing is not going to be seen as being a big deal. But you got to get people emotionally invested in the character. And so that means you have to add some kind of depth to the character. And again, I said that they have added a little bit of it with The Miz. But this is a main event level feud. And I know they kind of threw it together with not a lot of time. And then they also had John Cena holding his hand for most of this. So I get it, trust me. But I would like for them, when they're serious about maybe making LA Knight a top guy for the long term, them going into that sympathy, them going underneath all of the stuff that you see with LA Knight, going underneath that, as an older talent, as somebody who, busted his ass to get here, and I really want to see that element. And I think that's going to be very interesting when they eventually get there. But he did really good tonight. They did a great job of having him show up Roman at every turn. But I don't think anybody's going to be upset when he loses. I think people mostly expect it at this point. But that emotional content is when you really get over. When you could take people on a ride and a promo, that's when you really get over. Not just when they say what you say, the call and response. That's good. That's great. But, a lot of good, performers have that call and response element to it. But do they actually give a shit when you lose? Do they care when things don't go the way that they expected it for you? And I don't think so. I don't think there's emotional investment there. But hopefully they will get around to it eventually. Santos Escobar and Carlito were defeated by the Street Profits. The Street Profits have a new theme song, and I'm absolutely sick of them changing somebody's theme song every single goddamn week. I'm tired of it. Oh, the Street Profits are heels now, so they got to have it. Look, they were heels when they debuted, and they had the same theme song. Like, this new theme song is not good. Like, the problem, one of the many problems with WWE is that they change people's theme songs so much. You don't know who the fuck is coming out. You don't, iconic theme songs are built over time. This constant need to change the theme songs every 2 fucking weeks is really frustrating. It's so stupid. Don't change their theme song. Just leave it alone. I don't care about them being heels now, so you got to have a new theme. No, they don't. They don't need to have a new theme. Because they're not going to be heels forever. So this is goofy. There's nothing wrong with their original theme. So, Rey Mysterio was attacked backstage by Logan Paul. Santos Escobar and Carlito see this, and Santos Escobar actually lets Carlito run off to help Rey, which leaves Santos by himself, and he gets beat by the Street Profits. Well, that wasn't smart. I can tell you that much. That was kind of dumb. Backstage, Logan Paul says that he doesn't want anybody to know his next move. That's why he shook Rey's hand last week while punching him in the head this week. Then he also snatched the microphone and gave it back before saying that, him and Rey are in 2 different classes. They have weight classes in boxing for a reason. So Logan Paul is now a heel. Well, he was a heel already. So which of course led to the question of why in the world was he even trying to be respectful last week when we all knew he was going to be a heel. But okay. Carlito loses his Smackdown re-debut. Very bizarre. But Escobar loses again. And this time, I guess he's going to blame Rey for it. They need to make some movements with this LWO thing. There needs to be some movement. It's been the same thing for a while now. They need to do something. I don't know. It just feels like this thing is moving too slow. And something needs to shake for the LWO. They feel like they're stuck in a rut. Like they peaked back in, April with Backlash. I think that was the peak of LWO. And they've struggled to get back to that peak. Now they're very comfortably mid-card, which is where they were anyway. And Zelina Vega doesn't even wrestle anymore, so I don't know what's going on with her. Kevin Owens, oh my God. He had passing words with Logan Paul. And then Kevin Owens got into an argument with Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. Now, this was a stupid conversation. He was talking about how he wants to punch both of them. This was last week, where he said he wanted to punch. They have punchable faces and he wants to punch them. So this week they're arguing about whether he could punch them both at the same time. They say, of course, that he can't. Well, he swears that he could. And then, what as referees and officials or whatever separate them, they continue to jabberjaw about this, with Grayson Waller standing next to Austin Theory, and they're like, oh, he says that if we stand right next to each other, he could punch both of us. And so then he runs back on the screen and punches both of them at the same time. And they both fall over like bowling pins. And I look at this shit and I say, look, we just talked about Grayson Waller, right? We just talked about how he scored with this Taylor Swift thing that he was doing. And as soon as he gets on TV, this is what he's doing. Like on Twitter, at house shows, he's wearing like a Taylor Swift t-shirt, making fun of him and stuff like that. But as soon as he gets on TV, he's playing fucking Elmer Fudd with Austin Theory. What are we doing here? It's almost the exact same thing they did with Austin Theory last year when he seemingly had some real gas behind him. And then Triple H is like, he's not ready. He's not ready. So he has to be a crash dummy for 6 months. And then we're sitting here like, hey, you had something. What are you doing? Now, the same thing with Grayson Waller. Like, we got this thing where people were talking about it on television. It was on the news. Like, other big sites picked it up. Why aren't we talking about that? Why isn't he going ham on the Swifties or talking, or he's making some kind of reference to it, even if it is just a Twitter beef? We're not making any reference to something that can make him cool. We're making him an idiot with Austin Theory. They're both idiots. It's like, how many versions of the Miz do you really need? Like, how many of those do we really have to have on the roster at one time? We already got the Miz. We don't need Raw Miz, Smackdown Miz, and NXT Miz. We don't need that, all right? But that's what they want to do. Backstage, Dragon Lee is talking to him. He's still just happy to be here. He has no storyline. Cedric Alexander comes out of nowhere. The guy's still alive, apparently. Says that Dragon Lee reminded him of himself, which is not a compliment. Dan said that he lit the competitive fire in him and he wants to have a match with him tonight. And Dragon Lee accepted. And I thought that maybe Cedric Alexander, was it his birthday? Like, what is going on? Because he got a vignette. The Irish guy on commentary, Cedric Alexander is special. Like, he's special. He's not even on TV ever. Whatever. They went out there and they had a match, and it was solid. It was pretty good. I like Cedric Alexander. Them alluding to the Please Sign Cedric stuff from 2016. Look, that's almost 10 years ago now. It's like 7 years ago. I don't know why we're bringing that back up. I don't know why we're bringing that back up. Cedric Alexander has been a guy who's been on the roster for a long, long time. If you're going to do something with him, you should have just started from square one at this point. He hasn't been on TV. So you can start from square one. You don't have to build back from 2016. But they had a pretty good match. Dragon Lee's apparently going to use Destino as a finish, which is the finisher of Tetsuya Naito. So, all right. I liked it. It was a slightly modified version of Destino, but okay. It's a fun match. It was unique. It was different. I don't like that it was babyface versus babyface. I thought and hoped that Cedric Alexander would turn on him and beat him up or something. But nope. Nope. They didn't do that. So, very unfortunate. Still, pretty good. Fun match. Shotzi versus Chelsea Green, however, was not so fun. Shotzi is she's a fun girl to watch, but she's not good. And what I mean by a fun girl to watch is that she seems to be very quirky. If with the right character, she would be okay. But in this work rate era, I'm not so sure that she's going to fit in. She's mostly a character-based wrestler, from what it seems like. She's not technically proficient. And she takes very terrible bumps. She's just worried that she's constantly going to get hurt. Chelsea Green is an absolutely fantastic character. She is underutilized, in my opinion. Yes, she does a lot of backstage stuff, but Chelsea Green, She's not exactly Charlotte in the ring, but she's better than what the situation calls for. Where basically she's a jobber, essentially, but she just happens to have a title. Like how Chelsea Green. When the last time Chelsea Green won a match? You know, and that's like one of those questions. Like, she's a champion, yet she never fucking wins ever, and she very rarely wrestles. And in fact, she wrestles so sparingly. I think they're about to have their first title defense. I don't think they've ever defended the titles until they defend them on NXT this upcoming Tuesday. 100 days they've been the tag team champions, and they haven't had a grand total of 0 title defenses. I think they've probably only had a handful of tag team matches in general. So I don't remember they had any defenses whatsoever. And that's look, if you're gonna do something like that with Chelsea Green, she should at least be visible. With her not being visible and also not wrestling, her doing very short 40-second backstage promos where she threatens to call the manager on the general manager or whatever is funny. She looks great in these little outfits they put her in. It's just unfortunate that they're not doing enough with her to show her off, or at least let her get some heat before you blow it off. But she doesn't have to lose every fucking match she's in. You know, like, she didn't need to lose this match. She could have won this match. Not because, you know, I dislike Shotzi, but she has help outside the ring. Like, the heels have a 2-on-1 advantage of how Chelsea Green managed to still lose. You know, like, it's literally ridiculous. This whole thing was based off of Chelsea Green wanting to be the host of Halloween Havoc and was upset that Shotzi was chosen over her. Even though I was like, it's a little late for that, isn't it? Like, shouldn't this argument have been made last week? And also, she was on NXT and didn't mention at all that she wanted to be the host of Halloween Havoc. But I guess, you know, we had to have a reason for this match to exist. It's clear that on this episode of Smackdown, when they brought back Cedric Alexander and they got Shotzi wrestling on this show, that they didn't give a damn about this episode of Smackdown. They're like, it's on FS1. Nobody gives a shit. Screw it. Cedric Alexander, Shotzi, go ahead and get some screen time. Shotzi, not good. John Cena, excellent. John Cena is a masterclass in audience manipulation. Watch this promo, and I have to tell you, this was probably one of my favorite John Cena promos of all time. And I'm going to tell you why. So John Cena begins saying this is a serious time for him. Things ain't been this serious since 20 years ago when WWE wanted to fire him. Then he says that even back then, he felt the crowd's support, so he dug deep and he kept going. He says eventually he earned the people's respect. But he says that after 20 years, he feels like he's in jeopardy of losing their support. He's in jeopardy of losing their respect. And he said he wants to keep this ride going. He wants to keep the people's respect. So there's only one thing that he can do. Win. He says that WWE talks a lot about must see. And he said that Crown Jewel not only must see, for him it is a must win. He said respect is earned. So it's time for him to dig deep, to knuckle up, and deliver. Before we get to the Paul Heyman part, I just want to talk about the John Cena part. All right? Because he gives you the vulnerability that he's worried that the audience is going to turn on him because he hasn't won a match in 5 years. Now, this is a legitimate concern. A lot of people have talked about Cena not winning lately, you know? And for not only is he not winning, he hasn't really been looking that good. You know, his matches have diminished in quality. So there's a lot of people who are like, well, John Cena isn't Super Cena anymore. You know, he's getting older. It's becoming more sporadic, his matches, and then he's losing his matches when he does have them. So you're kind of sitting back saying, man, Cena doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things anymore. And this is the character recognizing that. This is John Cena being a real person saying, look, I've put you guys through a lot. I've come out here, big talk, swung, and lost. And eventually you guys are going to give up on me. You know, I feel that support slipping. But he's roused the people back up, and they still chant, "You still got it." And he says, "But what if I don't?" I was like, oh my God, bro. Like, he's playing people like a goddamn fiddle, bro. Like, that emotional manipulation is a motherfucker. These people really want John Cena to win this match. People fear that if Cena loses, that he may retire. That if he loses, he may give up. He may figure he doesn't have it anymore. He's questioning himself. He's being vulnerable. He's looking at the people and saying, if I can't win this match, will you still support me? Will you still respect me if I can't win this match? And at the same time, he's saying, I'm not giving up on myself. It's not a foregone conclusion that I'm going to lose. I can win. I will win. I must win. I have to win. So he's giving you both sides of the fence. He's giving you Super Cena. I'm going to dig in deep. We're going to fight this out. At the same time, he's also telling you, I might not have it anymore. So you're getting both. You're getting both. And it's not a conflicting report. He's questioning whether he can do it, but he knows that he's got to do it. You know, he's challenging himself to pull it together and get it done, which is what people want to see from Cena. This is what they've always enjoyed about John Cena, is that he finds a way to win. So Heyman comes out there and he says he thanked John Cena for the house. Said that Vince McMahon empowered him as the general manager of Smackdown low these many years ago. He says, first round draft pick from OVW, who did you pick? Heyman picked John Cena. He said he even raised his kids to be more like John Cena, even more than being like himself. Then he says that Roman Reigns proved that John Cena isn't the greatest of all time in the ring anymore. But when it comes to communications, when it comes to this talking, when it comes to his connection with the universe, John Cena is the greatest of all time. And that he could have been Paul Heyman had he chosen to do so. Then he says that the bloodline could beat up his body. They could break his sternum, bust his rib cage, and he'll come back from that. But he said Solo, Samoa, and Spike, well, that'll take away his voice. And if Cena can't talk, if Cena can't communicate to these people, he's got nothing left. And then he says that you may say this is the one match that you must win, but this is the one match you can't win. And then he's attacked from behind, and by he I mean John Cena was attacked by Solo Sikoa and hit with Samoan Spike. So they're going with the Samoan Spike taking away Cena's voice. I probably wouldn't have gone that route. But Heyman putting over Cena's promo ability and how he could take the audience on that roller coaster, that up and down, and how he could get them to believe in him, and how he's witty enough to respond to them, and saying Solo will take that away from you. Solo will crush your throat, and you won't be able to talk to these people anymore. You won't be able to rally them around you anymore. You'll lose that connection. You'll lose that energy. You'll lose it. I probably would have gone with something a little metaphysical, like Solo is going to break your spirit. He's going to make you give up. He's going to make you, these people are going to turn on you once you actually break your motto of never giving up. When he makes you give up, he's going to make you quit. Go back to Hollywood and never come back. But hey, taking his voice away, all right, cool. Because the voice is seen as a moneymaker. It's how he manipulates people. It's how he tells his stories now. He's not really all that in the ring anymore, but he has so much equity built up in that character that people will always have that belief in him. Similar to Hulk Hogan, even when Hogan was in his older years, people still had the vision of Hulk Hogan from the 80s in their mind, even in like 2000. People still like, oh, the Hulkster. So Cena is at that road. And so they're telling the story that the Samoan spike could take away Cena's voice. I like this is a good match. This is a really good match. Now they're billing it as Cena's biggest challenge, which of course everybody's taking far too literally. They're like, oh, Cena wrestled Roman Reigns and Undertaker. It's not literal, right? It's not his literal biggest challenge. Like he wrestled the great Khali. That was literally the biggest challenge because the guy was 7'4" or whatever. He looked like a willow tree. What he means is this is the biggest challenge because at his advanced age, having not won a match in 5 years, he doesn't just have to beat Solo Sikoa. He has to overcome this self-confidence issue, this doubt that he has within him. You know, for the first time in a long time, Cena doesn't believe he can do it, but wants to challenge himself to do it. And the audience is going to be right there with him. That's what the biggest challenge is. Not necessarily Solo Sikoa, you know? Even though Solo Sikoa is a really good challenger on his own, but like I said a couple of weeks ago, like Solo Sikoa has been beaten by Cody Rhodes and LA Knight and a couple of other people at this point. You know, he's lost some matches. He's dropped some matches. Now, the question, of course, has become, should Solo win this match and get the huge rub of beating John Cena? So I say, well, if you're going to disappoint the audience, before this promo, I would say it would have been okay for Solo to win. After this promo, I don't think Solo has no business winning this match. Solo has to take the L. All right. No, Cena isn't going anywhere. He's not going to challenge for the title anymore. But you want to reward the audience for their emotional investment in John Cena and in his angle and in his matches and in his character. You want to reward the audience for their belief in him. And that's another championship in and of itself. It's going to give people a great sense of joy. And it can offset, in some ways, the disappointment of LA Knight not winning. You know? Is that, well, at least John Cena won. At least John Cena's not going to retire. At least he's not, you know, no longer being humiliated. His confidence has come back. He's back to the Cena of old. He's found what he's lost before. I don't think you have Solo win this match now. Now, again, if you'd asked me last week, I would have said maybe Solo could win. But now I'm saying, nah, there's just no way Solo can win this match now. And it's not going to kill him. It ain't going to hurt Solo at all to lose this match. So it'll be okay. Now, I did take umbrage with Paul Heyman saying that, oh, Vince McMahon told him to pick somebody from OVW, and he picked John Cena, when we pretty sure that Paul Heyman probably would have chosen CM Punk. But they weren't in OVW at the same time. But we know how Paul pretty much lost control of ECW because he wanted to push Punk to the moon. That would have been 3 years later, I think. But 3 years after Cena was on the roster already. But it was humorous that Paul was like, it was my idea to make sure that you, John Cena, were the #1 draft pick of Monday Night Raw. It's like, not really, Paul. I don't know. And plus, we already know that Cena was more of a Stephanie guy. That Cena getting the opportunity and all the chances that he got was a Stephanie decision, not a Vince decision, not a Paul decision. But whatever. We're not going to talk about Stephanie. She's not on TV, so we're not going to talk about her right now. Okay? So the last thing we got to talk about is probably the most dour thing for us to talk about, and that is this absolutely, utterly garbage Bianca Belair promo. So this is probably the worst promo she's ever cut in her life. So she comes out here and she says that she had the damage control attack replaying in her head for 2 months, and that physically she was injured, but mentally she was really down. She said she couldn't focus on anything. She couldn't think about anything except damage control and how to get back at damage control, how to get that lick back. And she says she wanted to make them pay. And she says usually she smiles through it. She perseveres. But for the first time, she was consumed with vengeance. And she said that same vengeance led her to a rematch against Io Sky in Saudi Arabia, Saudi Mania. And that same vengeance is going to lead her to a match next week against Bayley. Now, you may say, well, what was wrong with this? She stumbled a little bit, but, it's not the worst promo she's ever cut just because she stumbled a little bit. No, I don't really use the whole stumbling stuff against you. I mean, I cut promos all the time. I mess stuff up, say the wrong thing. Shit slips my mind. It is what it is. When you're talking, it happens, especially if you're doing a live promo. I think this was garbage because I didn't feel the intensity I needed to feel from this. I didn't feel the passion I needed to feel from this. And I feel like the punchlines were weak. And what I mean by the punchline is she talked about how she was consumed with vengeance, and she was consumed with wanting to destroy Damage Control once and for all. But these aren't just regular singles matches. Like, it'd have been one thing if she was to say, I'm challenging Io and Bayley to a handicap match, Falls Count Anywhere or something like that. And, I'm going to beat them both at the same time or something to that effect. Or, we're going to fight Bayley in a steel cage. And then the next night I'm going to fight Io in a last woman standing match or something. Just, spitballing ideas, not really thinking too much of it. But and also the passion is the most important thing. The intensity is the most important thing. If she was consumed with rage and vengeance, that should come across in your voice. You being angry should come across in your voice. Like, she came across as being stern, but she didn't come across like she was angry. Like, she really spent 2 months lingering and brewing about this. She came across like this was a minor annoyance, which is not what she's trying to convey. And the purpose of the promo is to convey that she's pissed off and that Damage Control has gone too far. And plus, she's been fighting Damage Control for months now, right? We definitely needed to spice this thing up. Now, I get not wanting to do some kind of special match because you had to wrestle the next night too in Saudi Arabia. I'm pretty sure it's going to be taped, but whatever. I get that. But the match with Io should be something special. It should be something where Bayley and Dakota can't get involved. Or maybe she's going to do something on the show where they can't get involved. Like she's going to put them both in a blender, or she's going to lock them in a coffin or something crazy like that. I don't know. We don't know until it actually happens. But booking them for regular matches doesn't scream, well, she's filled with vengeance. It screams like she's gotten a rematch for her title that she lost via Money in the Bank. Okay, that's nice, but, I needed more than that. I need something that's going to lead me to believe that Io is in some real danger and that a real badass is on her heels. And I didn't feel that from Bianca. I didn't get that from her. And then you probably could have just, did something else with Bayley. So, I don't know. I didn't like this. And I love me some Bianca Belair. I really do. But I thought this promo was very, very weak. It's one of the weaker ones she's ever cut. And I feel like the character, simply put, did not deliver the emotional investment. That's what I've been talking about, right? Talking about emotional investment this entire episode. I don't think Bianca Belair delivered the emotional investment necessary to carry this story. She should have grit through her teeth. She should have not waited for the crowd to respond. She should have snarled a little bit. She should have called them names. That bitch Bayley, that piece of crap, Io Sky, show that she's pissed off. Show that she's angry. Something that's a little out of character for her, that she's shaking a little bit, and then maybe even challenge them to come out there and fight her right now. She'll fight all three of them right now, something. But I didn't get it. That was a big miss for me, especially when you're trying to tell the story of vengeance and anger and frustration. You gotta express that, and I don't think she got there. All right, Smackdown mostly okay. LA Knight, very good. Roman was also pretty good. Him telling Jimmy again about the yeeting. He's going to end up beating Jimmy ass about this Yeet stuff. Jimmy is still funny as hell. He's being silly. John Cena, tremendous. Excellent stuff between him and Solo and Paul Heyman. That stuff was really good. But Kevin Owens, Bianca Belair, I don't like Kevin Owens already. I think it's a complete misuse of Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. They should have been doing something else. Dragon Lee looked good. So did Cedric Alexander. If we're going to be using Cedric, I think the tag team division would do very well for him. Maybe put him across Lashley and the Street Profits. And maybe Lashley tries to recruit him, and he's like, man, that happened before. I'm not with that now. Or whatever. Or turned over a new leaf or something. But, you know, do something. But Dragon Lee and Cedric Alexander both looked very good. Logan Paul was fun, of course. But Bianca Belair, oof, no. Shotzi, no. So it was a mixed bag, but the opening segment and Cena segment really killed it. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.